Feisties, this is your favorite and feistiest women's sports show. Why what's happening in your favorite sports is happening. I'm Kelly O'Mara.
And I'm Sara Gross. And this week, how do women's sports make money without making so much money that their fans don't like them anymore? I mean, is it even possible? And Kelly, by the end of this show, no. Okay, answered, done. Episode over.
Episode over.
But okay, one of my goals for this episode, Kelly, is that I want every listener to fully understand the WNBA collective bargaining agreement situation that's going on. What's at stake for the players? What's at stake for the league? And the future of women's sports broadly.
Oh, do you just understand that?
I just want you to understand that. That's what.
It's a big promise.
Yes, I'm happy to make it right here, right now.
All right. So all of that coming up today. But first, what we loved in sports this week. I'm going to go with the New York Marathon to start. I know last week I was joking, can marathons get bigger and bigger forever and ever? And I guess the answer is at least for one more year. Right. Because this was 59,226 finishers. It's
impossible to get your brain around, just that number of people on the start line.
I was like, that is more people than live in my town. I think my town is 57,000 people.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I still have this question of, is it a running boom or is it a bucket list events boom or is it no boom at all and just a coincidence?
Discuss.
Discuss. No, I started to cough and I went to get some water. You were just waiting for the answer.
I was like, is it? What is it? Well, first of all, before we discuss, I do think that Hellen Obiri, did I say that
Obiri.
Right? Yes, won in 1955, which was actually a course record for New York, right?
Yes, and the first three women were all under the old course record. She was the first woman ever under 2:20 in New York, because New York's not, if you've run it, it's not super fast. This is not like a Berlin or a Chicago, which is where you go to kind of run fast times. It's a little hilly, can be hot. It has 59,000 other people to deal with.
And back to your original question. I do think we've even noticed it with Feisty is people are more interested in life, real events, things happening. People are attending things out in the world more than ever. Back to, I think probably bigger than, this is just a guess, but bigger than pre-COVID numbers, right? So it doesn't surprise me that an event like the New York Marathon is getting so many people coming out to run.
Well, there was also this thing happening coming out of the pandemic that was bucket list vacations, right? People wanted to do the things that were on their list that before they would never be able to, whatever that, right? Go to Antarctica. I mean, that's a big bucket list, but smaller bucket lists would be go to Venice, do the New York Marathon, things that you've been wanting. So the question I have is sort of is this a trend that then we're going to get out of the bucket list? Because we all know the economy is collapsing. We were just talking about this. So is everyone kind of oh my God, I got to do the things before I can't do the things anymore, and this is going to dry up?
I don't think so. I think that's
you. No. It is not, because we were just talking about women's participation in triathlon going down because the economy is bad.
Yes, but yes, the part I agree with that, and we are going to talk about that later. The thing that I was disagreeing on is that I don't think people necessarily preempt that stuff very much. Maybe some people, but I don't think people are I'm going to go out and do this now before the sky falls.
In all fairness, I think your news is different than our news.
That's actually true.
Our news headlines, our news headlines are maybe I should buy all my Christmas presents right now before.
Right.
And I just dropped some baby donations off at the bank, and they're desperate, right? It's definitely it's shifting. So my point anyway is this a bucket list boom where people want to they do want to get out, do real things, touch grass, or is this a running boom? Because everyone keeps calling it a running boom. That's run clubs are booming, running's booming. And a friend was just at the Chicago Marathon a couple weeks ago, and he said he's been to the Chicago Marathon 7 or 8 years in a row. And he was at this, and he goes to the same spots every year. And he was this year in this spot where normally there's no one, it was packed. So there is more people.
More people.
So you're what?
I think we have a clue in the fact that more women than ever went sub 3. Right?
Yes.
So I think...
Well, that's also an interesting...
Yeah. So it's not just people coming out, bucket list, I want to run a marathon, that it's also people, creating those goals, which sub 3 is a big goal in the marathon running world, right? Creating those goals and going after them, right?
Yeah, so if you look at the graph, Fast Women is one who's put together this like these numbers for the last 15 years or so, 20 years. You can kind of see that in the last 2 years, the number of women who run under 3 hours, run sub 3, has skyrocketed. And now there's a couple, obviously there's like Super Shoes, and New York changed its qualifying a few years ago where like fastest times do get you in, like they get you a guaranteed spot. So that probably changed who is in it. But also you have women coming off the massive change in Olympic marathon qualifying in the US, where you had huge numbers of women then trying to aim for the 245 or the 242 standard. Yeah. So I think it really shifted like sub-elite marathoning for women in the US, like whatever that word would be, where you take it seriously but you are not a professional runner, is like much more of a real thing now. I think it's really,
and it's not a surprise
like
that women's running is still developing at this point, right? When you obviously, we all know the historical stats around like the first Olympic women's marathon in 1983, or Catherine Switzer running Boston, and the officials trying to take her off the course. So it's not that surprising here that like 50, 60 years later, we're still developing.
I have a cough. I feel like I need to tell you this. And just for our listeners, developing a lingering cough from getting sick, which has happened post-Kona, because we were in Kona, and then also having a bruised rib from crashing. That is a 1 + 1 = 3 situation.
That is a terrible combo.
It's been not awesome.
I feel your pain.
Yeah. So neither is getting better as quickly as it should, because they just go in circles. So anyway, with the New York Marathon, it was, I think, a fast day, record breaking, because you had the top 3 women were all under the old course record. And you had in 4th place, which is my personal pick, Fiona O'Keefe. She had like the 9th fastest time ever on the course and the fastest ever American time. And she won the Olympic trials last year and kind of like first marathon. But then she had to drop out of the Olympics. And she did get some shit for it, because she was like, apparently, like she knew she was injured and she dropped out less than 5K in. But I feel like that's her spot to do with what she wants, right? Like,
yeah, totally. I was actually just reflecting this morning when I was running on a time when I had been injured for 6 weeks leading into a world championship where I was trying to qualify for a national team. And I actually was able to finish the race, and I didn't get the result I wanted, but I still qualified for the team. So I just feel like things can happen, sometimes despite an injury. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen until you go out there and start running. So yeah,
I have I've raced through injuries too. Totally works. Well advised. Super recommend.
Great idea.
Yeah. Great idea. Yeah. So point is, she got a lot of shit for not dropping out and giving her spot, but I thought that was kind of, I mean, she's a professional runner. She earned the spot. She probably got bonuses for, like, you can't tell her that.
People do that all the time. People come in injured. You don't know. Sometimes they end up dropping out, and sometimes they end up finishing and getting a result that they want, or somewhere in between. So. Yeah.
But so she has not run again since then, because it was like a pretty bad like femoral stress fracture or something. So this was her first marathon back, and she was like right in the mix. So kudos to her. And also I was like, I think it was not a slow day. I think it wasn't like that day when I ran it and we were like sharing ice.
Oh yeah,
out on the course.
You told your ice sharing story last week. Anyone who wants to know the ice sharing story, tune into last week's episode. To last week. But Kelly, the thing that had me all emotional this week was, of course, the Cricket World Cup, which talk about like the women's sports movement. This has happened to me a lot in the last year, where I go from like very close to zero education or interest or knowledge of any kind in a sport to like, I wouldn't say I'm super educated on cricket now, to be clear, but like to like very excited and overwhelmed with emotion by what's happening and how things are changing, and for the Indian team who took the World Cup.
Yeah, I had to say, when I heard, like, going into last week, we knew it was going to be Australia versus India in the semis and South Africa versus England in the other semi. And Australia and England have won every single Women's World Cup since there's been a Women's World Cup, Australia or England. So I was like, well, good for India. They made it to the semis. That's like, but they're not going to beat Australia. Like, everyone's like, they're not going to beat Australia. And it was so come from behind. Like, as other people have pointed out, like, you could not write a movie script like this. Yeah. Australia, the way cricket works is one team bats and they get as many runs as they can before you get like the 10 outs. And then that's like your target. They take a break. Then the other team goes, and you either hit that target or you don't, right? Like you either
beat it and you win, or you don't.
You either beat it and you win, or you don't. Yeah. And Australia went first, and they batted like a record number of runs, like 320 is how these. I mean, that's how these. But there was like a record number for a World Cup, so I was like, well, it's like done.
Everybody
right?
would have thought it was done. Yeah,
everybody would have thought it was done. And then it was just like they were the favorites. They haven't like they're the undefeated. They're the not just the defending champs, but undefeated for like multiple years here, right? And then India, they had this player Jemima, who wasn't even named to the team last time, and she comes up third in the batting, and she bats like 127 runs herself, and like rallies them, and then they make it to the final, and it was just, I mean, that's just like you can't like that's just insane, right? And of course, because they had some rough games in pool play, they'd lost a few, and it's not it's a very cricket mad country, but it is ranked quite low in the world in terms of like gender parity and gender equality. And like there's a whole bunch of stats that we can share about like the women are paid much less. The gender gap is very real. Like girls tend to like have less opportunities, all this stuff. Yeah. So they were getting just like all these guys just shitting on them, being like, you don't deserve this money, like, because you don't deserve to be on, this isn't cricket.
Well, and what I thought was the most infuriating for me was like actually the racism that was like intersected with the sexism. Yeah. So it was like, you saw these comments, Indian women belong in the kitchen, right? It's like,
you're like, okay,
what? Like that just took it to another level where I was like, oh my God, I just want to punch something.
So they had to like, I don't want to say overcome all that, because obviously like all of these women have had to overcome all these things throughout their entire like playing careers. But that is the stage in which, you had this massive crowd at the final. They beat South Africa. It's like everyone's going crazy. I mean, it was just, it was nuts, basically. It was very, very nuts.
It seemed very emotional from the clips that I saw.
Yeah. And so you had record attendance. There's like 35,000, I think, fans at the final. Something like I'm sure they'll come out with the exact numbers. Yeah. And record viewers across like all the digital platforms. Yeah. You also had 13.8 million, which the winner gets 4-ish million. Yeah. The winning team. So all of these players now, like, I mean, it gets divided up. They're not all getting that much money, but It's only been since 2017 that the national team and women's players in India even were on a professional, like a team national salary contract. Yeah. So they didn't have to have other jobs. Yeah. It's only been like so long that there's been a Premier League in India where like they have contracts and they can play. So it's not just like it's like going to change the sport.
This is going to transform cricket in women's cricket in India, like to a level that we can't. That us having lived in North America post Title IX can't possibly imagine. I don't think because we haven't seen that in our lifetime. Like that amount of money, $13.88 million going into. Well, I guess it goes across the teams, but 4 point whatever million was the winning prize money going into women's cricket in India. And then like you also have that effect of like how success begets success. Like we've all seen that where like in certain countries when you have, if you have a high profile Olympic champion and something, all of the kids then the next generation all want to do that sport. And so we're just going to see piles and piles of like Indian girls wanting to play cricket, which is just incredible.
And there were obviously like trailblazers, pioneers before them. Like India made the final in a World Cup like back in 17 or 05. But it's happened before, and they had this like amazing captain who was their captain for 17, 18 years. Wow. And retired in 2022 and like led them to 2 finals. And she got to hand over the trophy, and so a lot of these girls,
they paved the way.
Like she set the stage for them. And so it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So it's really special. And the reaction, like if anyone hasn't seen it, go check out our reel on social, like where on _media, where you see the celebration. That was a celebration like, I mean, every team celebrates when they win a world level event, but this was the next level celebration. You could see it.
So, I will say though, it also highlights a lot of our kind of underlying question, whatever, the question of the day, Sarah.
Question of the day.
How much money should female athletes make? Because I will tell you, I had so the Premier League in India, some of the elite players now are making, the women, a couple $100,000 on a contract.
Yeah.
And even people who are women cricket fans and cricket fans are like, that seems like a lot of money. Like, I don't know. Like, how are they like earning that much money for the team? You know, how do they make that much money back? Part of me is like, India is a giant market. Do you think about how many girls you can sell shit to off that league?
Yeah.
So my point is, there's still this underlying, like, I don't know. That seems like a lot
happens.
of money.
I mean, doesn't that happen in any situation when change happens quickly, right? Or when people are suddenly paid a lot more money than even the supporters of being paid more money all along are like, are we sure we want that much money? We want that much more money. It's a thing about human nature, right? Like, do we want that much change? It's like the little like conservative voice in all of us. Like, how quickly do we want change? It's like,
I mean, obviously, like, we hear it a lot in some of our sports. They're like, well, I'm all for equality, women, but let's not go crazy, right? And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to kind of see it, because the other thing is, like, obviously, like, we're saying, like, this is going to be a pivotal, like, changing moment, this amount of money, this amount of success, these examples, this TV deals, like, for a 1.2 billion person population, like, that is going to be massive. But it also came on the backs of, you know, a development pipeline, making that women's pro league in India, giving like the national team salaries, right? Like, it took that to get us there. So if we're going to like extrapolate and draw parallels, right? It's like, you cannot have one of the best teams. You don't just like randomly accidentally win a World Cup without some of that investment.
That's already in place.
It's already in place. So, but yeah, we were going to talk about the WNBA. I was about to say WNBPA, but that's the Players
Association. But which is honestly,
contract.
The acronyms even for me have been confusing trying to read up on this, because I'm like, can't we just call the Players Association the Players Association and not just add a P to an existing acronym? Right. Because then my brain, like, it makes my brain function weird. But
one of the things that like the Players Association now you got me confused. But one of the issues at the crux of this whole debate over contract is kind of like they're like, well, we should be paid more, and everyone's like, I'm all for equality, girls, but like, let's not go crazy.
Yeah.
And a thing I did appreciate about cricket was they didn't say like, oh, we have to go in increments to up the prize person. They were like, no, like, let's just make it equal to the men's now.
100%.
Like,
yes. And of all places to have that happening in a World Cup in India is amazing. Right. Yeah.
And that took it was like a 4-time increase of what it was last time. And so we're kind of at that point with WNBA now, right? Yep. Where everyone agrees that they should be paid more. The league agrees they should be paid more. The players think and what is the debate is kind of, and we're going to like get into some of the details, but what the debate is both like how much more they should be paid and like what that looks
and how,
like, right? Like,
and by
how
what
much
mechanism.
Are they apart?
Yeah.
Right.
So I was trying to whittle this down into, because I have actually been struggling, even having read all about the WNBA collective bargaining agreement, like, what are the issues? How do I simplify this into something that like I can repeat to someone when they ask me, right? So really.
And you got it down.
This is what I got.
In 60 seconds.
You can tell me, you can be like, no, Sarah, this would be a better explanation. But okay, the main issue is about the revenue sharing, right? And the percentage of the revenue that goes to the players, so that their pay will continue to grow with the league. So like you said, like, everyone agrees that they should be paid more. It's just like, by what mechanism? Right. So already the league has come to the table with a massive jump in the maximum. We talked about this before a couple of weeks ago in the maximum and minimum salaries. So they've already offered the minimum salaries going up from $66K to $300, and the maximum going from $250 to $850, which are huge jumps. Right. So on the surface, if you just heard that, you might be like, okay, we're talking about like a 4X, 5X like jump to your salary. That's huge. In any industry, like, why not just say yes to that, right? And the league maintains that it needs to keep, like, so the league, but basically what the players want is the same as what the NBA has. for the most part, is that that they want 50% of the revenue ish, a bigger percentage of the revenue to go directly to paying them so that they are scaled into the growth of the league.
So what you're saying is like the league is saying, we're going to pay you 4 times more. And then you're like, well, why wouldn't anyone say yes to that? And the players are saying they don't want to say yes to that because they're betting on themselves. They fundamentally, first priority is revenue sharing. They want a share of revenue because they fundamentally believe that it will be even more than that, right? Like they believe because of the projections of the last few, like based on the last few years and the growth.
Yeah.
That if they agree to a salary cap of $800,000 through the next 6 years, that's actually going to lowball. Like that's actually going to go low.
Right. Yes, exactly. Right. And they can they're going to have salary caps, minimums and maximums, as well as a percentage, as well as hopefully a percentage share of the revenue. Right.
So they want revenue sharing. That is the fundamental disagreement.
Yes. And so then when you're like, okay, you have this huge, massive growing thing. The players are clearly very, very important to that growth, right? It's growing hugely. Why would the league then not just agree to share the revenue to share a percentage of, some negotiated percentage of this massively growing revenue, right?
I like how a second ago we were like, why wouldn't the players just agree?
I know.
I'm like, why wouldn't the league just agree to share?
I'm trying to play both sides because I think prior to this, I think I have fully understood where the players stood and have struggled to understand where the league stands in this, right? So that's why I've had to break this down even for myself, So the league, and this is the crux of it, I think here, the league maintains that it needs to keep some portion of the revenue for the owners and investors and to ensure continued growth, to attract new owners and investors to have...
Counterpoint, Sarah. The players aren't taking 100% of the fucking revenue.
Oh, no, I'm not making... to be clear, I'm on the player's side. I'm just I'm just trying to understand. I'm just giving a try of... I'm just... What is it? I'm honestly trying to understand.
The league, I think the league's argument is, one, it is structured differently than the NBA. So saying that the NBA, the players get 9 or 10% of revenue, that doesn't work the exact same because the WNBA ownership is structured slightly differently. So the owners, there isn't as much revenue. That's the league's argument. The league's argument is there isn't as much revenue to go around for everybody. So if we want people to keep investing in the league, which is obviously what we want, and they also want to expand to even more teams, then we're not going to get that kind of investment if we start cutting off and limiting their potential profits.
So, another key point here that I didn't read anywhere, so now I'm just connecting dots, okay, is that because you have these valuations of teams that have gone up. Yeah. Some of them tenfold, over, so the valuations have gone way, way up. So in order to attract new investors and new owners, right, you need to attract different people. You need more billionaires to support the growth of your league.
That's really what a lot of people say about the world right now. We just need
more that's billionaires. Right. I hear that all the time.
All the time.
You need more people who can afford to invest in a team or the league or whatever, to be attracted to. And so in order to do that, you need to say to them, okay, look, this is you obviously have to open your books, show them your numbers and show them that their investment is going to be good. And so I think that desire to, and they're saying this outright, so I didn't just figure this out on my own, but
they're saying
desire to find new investors and ownership and actually continue to grow the league is now at odds with the players wanting to be paid what seems fair, I think, to a lot of us.
I don't know that it's at odds. I think it is only at odds with if we accept all the current premises. You see what I'm saying? Right. If we accept the status quo, then it might be at odds because we've told investors oh yeah, we got a great deal for you. We have this league, it's making huge. We don't even have to pay the labor. It's fantastic, right? Then sure, your new deal for your next investors is not going to be as good, right? So that I think is if we accept the existing constraints, then sure, those two issues are at odds,
right? But, and this is exactly it, right? And then I think it this kind of feeds into what we wanted to talk about, which is what is the model that we want to have for women's sports and these leagues as they grow, right? So it's essentially right now you have the fans are backing the players. Like, and the fans are the ones who like buy the tickets, buy the merch, watch the games, like buy the products of the sponsors, right? And so like obviously that has a huge influence on like who has power in this situation, right? But you also need like your owners and investors, and like, and how you make those two things work together for the future of women's sports, I think is important here in this negotiation. But also, this is not going to be the last time. Like, this same conversation is going to happen like as some of these new leagues grow as well.
Yeah, arguably it's just happening in WNBA right now because they hit such a growth point. So, well, not so quickly because they've been around for 20 years, but in such a short period of time, they grew so quickly that all of these issues are kind of like coming to a head. Whereas I think sometimes you might have them spread out a little bit. But one of the things like you kind of hinted at there is that there's all these studies that show female sports fans, but specifically WNBA fans, are slightly different than NBA or male sports fans. Like, they follow players. They are fans of players specifically. Next of like a team.
Well, I think they're fans
and
of
so
the players.
They identify with.
They're the fans of the players, but also like they're fans of women's sports. They're fans of the league. Like, they're not necessarily as identifying with the teams themselves as men's sports.
That is like generally true in this, like in these stats, right? Where it's like no team in the WNBA has more followers than their most followed player on like social media, right? So that if you kind of inherently are coming at it from one, you follow the players, you're on the side of the players, you followed them to this team that you're a fan of them of, then you're going to be with them, right? I think the other thing that a lot of women's sports and arguably the WNBA is struggling is not the right word, but like they don't know quite what to do with is like you're saying, a lot of fans come with this. They are fans of women's sports. They are fans of like social justice issues.
Yes.
They want their teams and their players to stand for something and represent something. And so then that is fundamentally like you're going to be at odds with the money. You're going to be like against the establishment, right? You're like, I am here for my player. I'm going to back my player. And I don't want these corporate bigwigs to be taking her money.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it play out in this specific negotiation because the fans are with the players. Like, the fans are completely with the players. They're like booing the commissioner.
Yes, they're very, very much with the players. And it's going to be interesting to see like what happens into the future when the players become the owners. Like, what happens when, you know what I'm saying? Like, what happens when we move to that like next level of like, we become the man. Essentially.
Well, I think one of the things that was super interesting about the WNBA negotiations specifically is like, okay, so Nafisia Collier is the head of the Players Association, and she also founded the 3-on-3 Unrivaled League. And so one of the things she said in her like Scorched Earth interview at the end of the season was like, they made this seem so complicated, and then we went and did it. And it turns out you can give players ownership. You can build like a player first league from the ground up. Actually, like, we know you can because we have this model that we just built. But I don't know that that's like super, like, I think she's a very, very smart person. I don't think that's like super easy to do. I think they built Unrivaled like very consciously to do that, to like get buy-in from all the players. But yeah, in a very classic strike sense, the league has lost the fans. They are
100% the league.
They have lost this public,
and that's
battle.
a big deal. Like, if it goes to that, like if it goes to strike where the players essentially don't play, the fans are on their side, and it's going to be really hard to shake that.
Interestingly, though, okay, so to your point, right, that they identify with the players, they identify with women's sports. The other big thing this past weekend was the World Series. Men's sports. We're going to talk about men's sports just so we can talk about men's
for
sports.
For a comparison, for
comparison
purposes. Yeah.
So the men's World Series was this past weekend, and I assume all of Canada watched.
I think so. Like, I think, like Maya, who I think sent a voice memo last week on our team, she did on her personal social, like just like an explainer about the rules of baseball because so many friends asked her about it. And I have to tell you, like, I had that same experience of like people not understanding like the basic rules of baseball because in Canada, like they're just literally watching it for the first time. They're like, what's going on? So yes, like I think there was a general national watching happening.
Right. So here's my question. So the whole country is behind the Blue Jays, who have one Canadian player on their team. And I'm going to guess you watched it and you cannot name a player on the Blue Jays.
No, I mean, I could have last week, but that's into my brain out,
right.
you know.
Out.
Yeah.
So it's like the opposite here, right? It's the opposite example where like you've created a franchise that people buy into the franchise. The cogs are somewhat interchangeable, which sounds terrible, but like they are. Obviously, people love certain players. Obviously, Ohtani was like massive in this World Series, whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Like you identify first and foremost with the team, and then you feel like that represents your area, your like who you are. Like we rooted against LA just because we rooted against LA, right? Like even though I don't care, you know. And if those players, when those players go up, think about the last time we had a men's sports contract negotiation. It is almost always viewed as these players are overpaid. They get paid to just play sports. Why are they bitching? They're already making so much, you know?
Yeah, I think,
and you don't have the fans with them.
You don't have the fans with them. I think in essence, we are in a moment where, like we've said many times, we don't have to build the women's sports infrastructure in the same way that we built the men's, right? So, like, I think that this is a time when, and I don't know, I'm not inside the negotiation, so whatever. Like, I have no recourse or say on any of this, but like that I think it is possible to continue to think about how we're taking social responsibility and within how they construct that deal. Like, and I don't really know, like, I don't actually really know without knowing the numbers what that looks like, right? But I think that the idea that we're right now, the idea that the players get scaled in makes a lot of sense to the socially conscious fans. And I understand why, and it makes sense to me, right? That we're not as concerned about the rich ownership team group being paid properly.
Or at least, okay, you have built a sport on a fan base that does not care about the rich ownership fan.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
They do not, you could have built a sport on a different fan base, but that's not what you did, right? Yeah. Like, you build a sport on a fan base that is like, fuck the rich ownership, does not care if they will make slightly less money.
Yeah.
And doesn't want to be them. I think that's the other thing. A lot of male sports fans idealize the rich ownership and the rich players in the sense that they like want to be like that. I don't think women's sports fans have that same.
Yeah. Like, so how do we build in a level of like social responsibility here that could make it like, because we have men's sports as an example that went before us to see what happened. So like we know what happened in the NBA when the players get 50% of the revenue, right? And we know that it leads to things like you just said, like people being like, oh, they're paid way too much. All they do is play whatever sport, right? So can we build something?
Except for Steph Curry, because Steph Curry is universally beloved. So
fair. But like, can we build something into the agreements? Like, can we build things into the salary caps, or can we build things into money that's being put back into the community, right? So like,
I honestly think, I'm gonna ready. Here's Kelly's hot take.
Okay,
ready? I don't think it's possible. I think this becomes the whole like, can you have good billionaires, right? And it's one of that like fundamental. That's like that's one of the existential questions of like our current political climate and times is like, is there such a thing as someone who you can be like a good billionaire, right? Can you make enough money and still be like a good person? And it becomes like this, and this is like kind of the crisis of the time, like of. And more people, like the reason the fans are with the WNBA players is because they feel like WNBA players are being taken advantage of, are not making enough. If they keep making more and more and more and more, and they're making $5 million a year or whatever, the fundamental answer to a lot of those fans is going to be like, there are people starving. We don't need you to make $5 million. We need childcare, right? Like we don't need like that extra couple million. We need like community food drives in our neighborhood, right? Like, so I think that you fundamentally get to a point where you lose your fan base does not believe that there can be good billionaires, for lack of a better term. And so there will be a point where in their head, the players are the same as ownership. They're all rich people.
Yeah.
Do rich people really need to be richer?
Yeah. And so I think what I'm asking is, can we build something into the infrastructure?
No.
Now, can we agree on it now? You're saying no? Oh,
I'm saying it is fundamental. I'm saying that I think it is fundamental. I think it is like inherent in the tension that when you, it's like when something gets too popular, it's not cool anymore. Quandary. It is the
so
crisis.
I agree with you to an extent. Like I agree with you in terms of like we're naming the crisis correctly, right? I do think that there's like a sliding scale of goodness for billionaires, right? Like so I do think that you can have, you could have billionaires who are, it has to be like you can have billionaires that are doing more good than harm, and you can have billionaires that are doing more harm than good. So how can we build into the system a way for like the league, the players, the teams to be committing now before the riches fall from the sky, like committing now to some kind of social impact that they want to have and build it into how the entire league is.
And I think there have been agreements that have tried to reflect this, right? Like the U.S. soccer, when they reached that settlement, the equal pay settlement, they built into that, like some of that money was set for like development, some of it was set for childcare, right? Like I think the Players Association of WNBA has tried to build in like certain notions of like, we will do these things around our stadiums. We will. Yes.
That's right. I think that's what I mean.
So I think that, so you can, and they have tried. My point is kind of a fun, like a how your fans view you. And right now they are on your side, but at some point you're just another rich, spoiled person. And like, yeah, it's fun to go to a game, but you will lose the fans then, right? Like, and women's sports fans are not a chill bunch.
This is true.
This is true. You know I am right. They are not a chill bunch. And so they, like, men's sports fans have been taught for a long, long time that, like, well, of course, every male player should be out there trying to get as much as he can, get, like, while the getting is good. Like, that is your goal in life. I think the women's sports fans have not been taught that, probably for better. They have been taught, like, you should do what you can to make the world a better place. And so at some point, it cracks for them. Like, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And like, because you can already see this tension in, I told you, like, my mom, like, didn't want to buy WNBA stuff because she didn't want to support the league. And you can see it in like the NWSL. Like, they're really struggling with some of this tension, even though they're more profitable than people give them credit for. But they are obviously smaller than the WNBA, but they are the next league that's going to have this problem. And they've been signing some deals, some sponsor deals, that a lot of their fans then are not on board with. Right. And they're not even like they're not signing like what you or I would think of as terrible
deals. Who did
deals.
they sign?
They're just like...
Can you remember?
Like, they signed a deal with Alex Cooper, right? For her, like, weird hydration product. I don't understand, like, why everyone has a hydration product. Side point.
Because it makes you look younger, Kelly.
Right. Whatever. What's that? The Ballerina Farm has a hydration product now? I don't... Yeah. Anyway. So they signed a deal with her, and a lot of people weren't fans because she came from Barstool, and Barstool's, like, a shithole, right? And so, like... They're like you alienate, and as you sign these more and more deals, and you like, and there are going to be more, and that's going to happen more and more. And I think like the PWHL, like, I am not deep in hockey culture, but when Maya comes on to give us a PWHL preview, we can talk about this. My understanding is they're also grappling with some like culture toxicity.
I'm glad that you brought up the sponsorship thing, because I think this is a big one in this in this kind of realm, like who the sponsorships are, when there's been like traditionally been these like smaller companies that sponsor the team. Suddenly you have big corporate and you have big money coming in, and you see returns, and like you still look like, I was looking up the other day, like the biggest, like what basically essentially like what are women buying right now is essentially the question I was like trying to get. And the number one is still like skincare. Like, which is fine. Nothing wrong with skincare. But I feel like
people take it to a weird level now.
Yeah. Like the fact that that's the number one thing. It's just kind of like, okay, we're still kind of like bogged down by beauty standards, this whole culture. Like, and are we bringing that into women's sports? Well, yes. Like, I wouldn't fight. Like, Sephora is the title sponsor of the Toronto Tempo. Am I going to make an argument about makeup? Like, no, like makeup's a product that like a lot of women a lot of women
Right.
like and
I
want.
think it's
and it empowers them,
fundamentally
and it's fine.
like
but-
I am not going to fight that fight, and like I think that sponsorship is fine, and I'm not going to like not follow the tempo because they have a Sephora. Do I think it's fundamentally weird and that we've like swallowed the fucking Kool-Aid? Yes, right? Like we have people, our audience, I'm sure there are people here who are like deeply care about what they eat and what they put in their body and what they put on their body, and they want to be like very, very healthy, and yet they probably wear large amounts of chemicals on their face over their entire lifetime because they have been told that that is normal. And I'm not saying like, I'm not like, we have people like it. Like, I'm just saying that is true. That is a paradox that like women have been sold.
Yeah, and we've even like
So I think it's like
on a much less grand scale, like even here at Feisty, like we grapple with that kind of stuff. Like when we're like we get approached by the most commonest supplement partners, right?
Yeah.
And then we have to like look into it and decide whether, and like I cannot tell you, especially like at certain times when we have like cash flow pinches, like how hard it is to say no to a company who's willing to pay you money when you're like, when you need that money, but you're like, I'm sorry, your product doesn't pass our test of being a quality supplement.
And so that there are, if we as Feisty took those sponsorships because they were going to pay us some crazy amount of money, and we were like, well, we're gonna hawk this super sketchy supplement, we would lose fans, right? There are many people in our audience who would say like, that is bullshit. That's not who you guys are.
And people have said
now,
that.
I'm just drawing a parallel.
Yeah,
people have said
we've
that.
had that before. People have said that just about even us having supplement partners broadly, but we just instead go with like vetting supplement partners. We have to draw a line. There it is. But not everyone agrees with the line. So I already have these conversations. Yeah.
So that line is, so my point is like, we understand it on our level. Then you multiply that by 1,000 or whatever. And my mom is going to be like, why the fuck is Sephora sponsoring a basketball team? I think that's bullshit. Because that's my mom, right? Other people, the line might be like, what was the douching product that was like sponsoring the Liberty that like was,
I forget what it
like,
was
I
called.
again, like, right. And I again, like, there are people like, that's fine. But this was one where like, there really is no health benefit. It's a lot about like, it might be doing more harm than good. Anyway, definitely might be doing more harm than good. So then there's people for whom that's going to be the line where you're like, well, now you've lost me. You're not who I thought you were. When all of this is like a made up, who they think you are is a made up thing anyway, I guess is sort of where I'm going, is my point. Like your image as a sports team is a made up thing that you are selling. You are selling it on the basis of branding and marketing and who you hire and what ads you put out and who your sponsors are. And so at some point you're going to get to these lines where that's going to be the
still
question.
think that, okay, while obviously you're not going to please everyone and you're going to have more and more of these problems, I still think it's like very much a gray scale or like a sliding scale. So I think it's still possible to try. I think it's worthy of trying, of like setting standards of social responsibility, just like on a tiny level we did it at Feisty. Like we said no to like a very big supplement brand that was like going, you know, that's on every
on many other
podcast. Yeah. And I took it to two people who I knew could like review the science on the product, and they looked at it and they're like, this is not what it says it is. It's not worth the money. And I said no. Right. And so like there's still a way to try to maintain some kind of like social responsibility there and still try to grow the company, because I do. And part of my reason for doing that is that I'm like, okay, we need our people to still trust us, and that trust is important. So I think the WNBA, the teams, the leagues, the NWSL, like I think that they can do that in some way, in understanding that it's always going to be gray and you're not going to please everyone.
I think who they currently have in the room, the current women's sports fans or current WNBA fans, that line, like you cannot become a company of a certain size and keep that. You will have to get other different fans. Does that make sense? Like, do you see where I'm going? Like, I'm making a hand gesture.
Yeah.
I'm saying like, this is your circle that you currently have.
Yeah.
This circle's line is really fucking low. This circle believes there is no such thing as good billionaires. You are going to lose a good amount of that circle as you grow. Partially, they're going to get priced out. They're going to like opt out. They're going to move on. Like they're going to pick some other thing that's like, well, now I like this other athlete who's up and coming and needs, right? So you are going to need to make that circle a different circle.
Right. Well,
you're going to need to get that more general, broad,
your fandom
like casual fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
And if you can't get the casual fan who isn't invested in your social responsibility, just wants you to win the goddamn game, then you have a problem. Like, then you're not, and like right now they're just making the circle that cares about the social, like, bigger, and they also need a different circle, Sarah.
That's true. The fandom does need to grow and diversify. That is actually true. And that's part of what the growth is going to look like.
Yeah. I don't know. They're like, at some point they're going to have to like switch, you know, they're going to be like, okay, you guys out. These other
you guys are out. Now we're only selling makeup and beauty products.
And sell it. Like, I think it's really it's you have to have the casual fan. Yeah. If you really want to become a mega league, you have to have the casual fan. Which we'll see. But right now, the WNBA still makes small enough amounts of money that everyone is on their side.
Yes.
Ultimately, they will make so much money, we will not be on their side anymore. But it probably is like 10 years away.
Well, I might be. Kelly won't be.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just telling you, same thing's happening in college sports right now, right? We were all on the side of college athletes.
Yeah.
And I still am, because I think burn the whole system down, whatever. You know, I am like, fuck it. They should get paid. But there's a lot of people who now it's like, whoa. I'm all for equality, girls, but that's the equivalent of what we're seeing happen now. They were like, I was all for, like, sure, players should be paid, but this is crazy. So you're seeing the same thing happen in college, and it's like gutting college fandom. So I'm not like making this up. Yeah. Like, you will, like, it is what happens.
Right.
But.
And it is gutting college fandom. Like, the numbers are down.
Well, college football is massively up, but part of that is, or not massively up isn't the right word. Part of that is because every TV network needs like something to fill their time, and you have the whole like TV kind of collapsing too, and like college football is very, very cheap. So like literally, it's like some state you've never, South Dakota Western State University versus Northern Alaska, like on TV, and I'm like, what the hell? And there's no one in the stands, so it's very weird right now, if that makes sense. Where there are huge amounts of money, but it's gutting like the local fandom.
Yeah,
but you're selling anyway. That's probably we can talk about the college landscape
another
in
day.
America
Another day. Okay, so
another time.
Our original question was, how do women's sports make money and stay true to their fan base? Right?
No, I think my original question was, can they make enough money without pissing off their fans? And my answer is no.
Okay.
So
I'm in the middle. I would like to. Okay, but just to move along. I would put this out to our audience. Does anyone have any thoughts? We love getting voice memos from you. So if you're listening to Kelly and I debate this, and you're like, hey, ladies, you're not thinking of this, this, and this, then you are the person we want to hear from. So send us a voice memo. The link will be in the show notes of how to do that.
I would like to hear a one sentence answer to, can they keep making more and more money without making so much money they piss off their fans? That is, I think, I would like to know where people are at. Yeah, your thesis statement. All right. We did our highlights, what we loved this past week. We dove deep into our topic for the week. Now, Sarah, I want your feisty pick of the week. I think I'm actually going to go first. Okay. I like how I said that, and then I decided I'm going to go
for
first.
it.
All right, so this week is 70.3 World Championships, which for people who don't know is the half Ironman World Championships, which I actually think is like the most fun distance. It's the best. It's in Marbella. There's like 6,000 people competing. And I want to give, this isn't exactly a pick, but I am giving a shout out to our intern who is QAing this right now, Lydia Russell.
Yes.
She is my pick for a hot top 10. I've been telling everyone she could pop off. Watch out for her.
Yeah, Lydia has been she's had a couple breakthrough performances in the last year. We're so excited for her. So yeah, I'm excited to see her race too. Okay, my pick is Sierra Kerr, and she is the 18-year-old who was the first woman to do a backflip on a surfboard. And she's the world junior champion of surfing.
Yeah.
But I until I saw this, did not realize that a backflip on a surfboard was a thing, and she is the first woman to do it. It's quite impressive.
Yeah. All right, send us your picks of the week too. If you liked what you heard, give us a review or rating. If you didn't like it, give us 5 stars anyway. Share with your friends. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on YouTube, and you'll get the full effect. And we will be back next week.